Hello, welcome to today's edition of the Daf Yomi. Today's Daf is Shevuot Daf 21, Omid B. So let's dive straight in. The Gemara asks, say the latter clause of the Mishnah 29a, which oath is an oath taken in vain. It is when one takes an oath to deny that which is known to be true, like one said with regard to a stone column that is made of gold. This is an oath taken in vain, for which one is liable to receive lashes if he takes the oath intentionally, and for which he is exempt if he takes it unwittingly. When the Mishnah says, this is an oath taken in vain, it is to exclude what? What isn't that phrase added to the Mishnah to exclude one who takes an oath saying, I ate or I did not eat, teaching that he is not flogged? The Gemara responds, no. The Mishnah adds, this is an oath, to teach that for violating the prohibition against taking an oath in vain, unwittingly, one is exempt from bringing an offering. But one who takes an oath saying, I ate or I did not eat, is liable to bring an offering for an unwitting violation. And this is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. One who deems one liable to bring an offering for oaths referring to the past, just like one is liable for oaths referring to the future. The Gemara asks, but didn't you say that the first clause of that Mishnah is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel? How can the first clause follow Rabbi Shmuel's opinion and the last clause follow Rabbi Akiva's conflicting opinion? The Gemara answers, the entire Mishnah is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, and the first clause does not serve to exclude one who took an oath saying, I ate or did not eat, from the liability to bring an offering. Rather, it serves to exclude one who took an oath saying, I will eat, and who subsequently did not eat, from the liability to receive lashes, but he is still liable to bring an offering. The Gemara asks, and what is different about the way of understanding the Mishnah that is to be preferred? The Gemara answers, it stands to reason that when the Mishnah is addressing an oath referring to the future, it excludes an oath referring to the future. In according to the reading that the entire Mishnah is according to the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, doesn't it make sense that when addressing an oath referring to the future, it excludes an oath referring to the past? As the reading of the first clause in according to the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel would have it. Therefore, the added sentence, this is an oath on an utterance in the first clause, so to exclude one who took an oath saying, I will eat, and who subsequently did not eat, from the liability to receive lashes, and the whole Mishnah can be understood as being in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. The one is liable to an offering even for oaths relating to the past. The Mishnah teaches that if one says, on my oath I will not eat, and then ate any amount, even less than an olive book, he is liable to according to Rabbi Akiva. As then was raised before the stage, doesn't Rabbi Akiva and the entire Torah, I in general hold that the halacha according to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, who deems one liable for eating any amount of forbidden food. As it's taught in the Bible, Rabbi Shimon says, one who eats any amount of forbidden food is liable to receive lashes. And the sages stated that an olive book only in the matter of determining liability to bring an offering. So what's an olive book, or kazayis? An olive book is one of the most significant halachic units of volume, as by Torah law, the act of eating is defined as consuming one olive book. And every mitzvah or prohibition by Torah law that relates to eating is defined in terms of this measure. The olive book is measured in terms of water displacement caused by a particular species of olive. The precise measure of an olive book is not clear. One Talmudic passage indicates that it's almost half an egg bowl, and another indicates that it is less than 1/3 of an egg bowl. Based on that disparity, as well as the range of opinions with regard to the measure of an egg bowl, the opinions with regard to the measure of an olive bowl range from 15 cc to 50 cc. Olives and olive trees are commonly found throughout Eretz Yisrael and are exceptionally long-lived species. Some olive trees from the time of the sages are alive today and still bear fruit. And if you have the Gemara here, it's on page 275, the Standschutz edition, with a picture of an ancient olive tree in Jerusalem. Rabbi Shimon agrees that there is halacha transmitted to Moses from Sinai that the standard measure for liability for eating is an olive bowl. He understood that quantity to be the minimum amount that renders one liable with an offering when one unwittingly eats forbidden food. Nevertheless, he holds that consuming any amount is prohibited and renders one liable to receive lashes if one does so intentionally. Rashi notes that although Rabbi Shimon's opinion in general is that one is liable to an offering only if he consumes an olive book or more, in this case, where the prohibition against eating derives from one's own oath, he is liable to an offering if he consumes any amount. One brings an offering for unwitting violating other prohibitions only when one has consumed a sufficient amount of food that is forbidden. In the case of a false oath, the essential prohibition is against breaking his oath, which he does once he eats any amount. And in fact, Rabbi Akiva agreed with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, and then by right, the Mishnah should have taught that Rabbi Akiva and the rabbis disagree in general. And the reason is that it states only here that they disagree is to convey to you the far-reaching nature of the opinion of the rabbis. The rabbis hold that even though it is possible to say that since one eats less than an olive book after taking an oath in which he specifically forbids himself any amount is liable. One who eats less than olive bulk without so specifying in his oath will also be liable, as this is included in his oath not to eat. That reasoning is not accepted. The Mishnah therefore states, it is true in the context of an oath that he will not eat in order to teach us that. According to the Rabbi, as long as he did not specify that his oath includes any amount, he is exempt from receiving lashes. The Gemara presents the other side of the dilemma. Or perhaps in general, Rabbi Akiva holds like the rabbis that one must consume at least an olive bulk in order to be liable for a prohibition that involves eating. And here, with regard to an oath that one does not eat, this is the reason that he disagrees. Since one who specifically forbids himself any amount is liable, in other words, everyone agrees if he had expressly prohibited to himself the eating of any amount, he would be liable, so that minimal eating can be prohibited by taking an oath. Similarly, when he did not specify his oath is presumed to be referring to any amount. Rashi adds that interpreting oath, the normal meaning of the oath is that which determines its content. And people normally refer to any eating, even of minuscule quantities, as eating. Some later commentators understand the dispute between Rabbi Akiva and the rabbis concerning a fundamental question. Does the liability for this act stem from the violation of the prohibition against eating? And since eating that is significant occurs only when one consumes an olive bulk, he must consume an olive bulk. Or does liability stem from the violation of the oath, which takes place once he eats anything? And that's from Rabbi Yosef Dov Soloveitchik. One who eats less than an olive bulk without so specifying his oath will also be liable. Come and hear that which the rabbi said to Rabbi Akiva. Where do we find that one who eats any amount is liable, leading you to say that this person is liable? The Gemara explains why this is relevant. If it is so, according to Rabbi Akiva, one is always liable for eating any amount. Let him say to them, in the entire Torah I hold in accordance to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. The Gemara answers, the fact that Rabbi Akiva did not answer the rabbis in that way did not necessarily indicate that he did not agree with Rabbi Shimon in general. Perhaps he's speaking to the rabbis in accordance with their own statement, and this is how we would respond to that question. For as far as my opinion is concerned, in the entire Torah I hold that the halacha is in accordance to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, that one who is liable for all prohibitions involving eating when one eats any amount. According to you, admit to me that at least that since one who specifically forbids himself any amount is liable, one who eats less than an olive bulk without specifying it in his oath will also be liable. And the rabbi said to him, no, we will not admit that. The Gemara presents another attempt to resolve the dilemma. Come here, Mishnah from Nazir 34b. Rabbi Akiva says that Nazirite who soaked his bread in wine, Nazir Sheshara Peter Bayayin. If a Nazirite ate bread soaked in wine, he is liable to receive lashes only if there is a quarter log of wine in the bread he consumed, and if he ate it within the time it takes to eat half a loaf of bread. This ruling is in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis who disagree with the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, and that's in the Rambam Sefer Haflah Hilchot Nazirut 5.5 in the Ketzer Mishnah there, and ate it, and the two together contained enough to combine to an olive bulk is liable, even though there is less than the minimum measure of wine. And if it should enter your mind that he holds in accordance to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon in general, then why do I need the bread and wine to combine to the measure of an olive bulk? Consumption of any amount of wine to be sufficient for him to be liable. And additionally, we learned in the Mishnah in 22b, if one says, on my oath I will not eat, and then ate the meat of unslaughtered carcasses, or animals with a wound that will cause them to die within 12 months, to Reifa. So let it in the note to find what Turefa is. Generally speaking, Turefa is an animal that is suffering from a wound that will cause it to die within 12 months. It is prohibited by the Torah to eat an animal that has a wound of this nature, even if it is richly slaughtered. Although the source for this prohibition is a matter of dispute. Some authorities cite Exodus 22:30. You should not eat any flesh that is torn of beasts, Turefa, in the field, while others suggest Deuteronomy 14:21. You should not eat of anything that died of itself. According to the Minchas Chinuch, both verses together serve as a source for the prohibition. Or pungent creatures or creeping animals, Shechazim Ushmasim. Tosfos Yom Tov distinguishes between these two words, suggesting that the term of pungent creatures, Shechazim, is referring to small animals, non-kosher birds and insects, which are called Shechazim in the Torah. The term creeping animals, Ramasim, is referring to worms and other creatures that infest produce that was believed to be the product of a spontaneous generation. And if you have the Gemara here, it's on page 276. A Cineris vulture is a non-kosher bird. He is liable, and Rabbi Shimon deems him exempt. And we discussed it. Why is he liable for breaking his oath when he eats non-kosher food? He's already on the oath from Mount Sinai not to eat forbidden food, and an oath cannot affect to render a matter forbidden that is already forbidden. Rav and Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan both, I all say that this is a case where he incorporates into the oath that he will not come to eat some permitted items, along with the statement concerning the forbidden items. Since the oath takes effect with regard to the permitted items, it extends also to the forbidden ones. And Reish Lakish says, you find that one is liable for eating forbidden food as a result of an oath only if it is both an oath where he specifies that it includes a half measure, in this case, less than an olive bowl. And according to the opinion of the rabbis, that one is not liable for eating a half measure unless it is specified in the oath. Since eating a half measure is not prohibited by the Torah, the oath takes effect. Alternatively, you find one is liable if he took an oath without specifying that the oath prohibits less than the usual measure, in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, who says that a person renders himself prohibited from eating any amount or taking an oath not to eat. And if it enters your mind that Rabbi Akiva holds in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon in general, this is difficult, as one who consumes any amount is already under oath from Mount Sinai. Why should the oath take effect according to Reish Lakish? Rather, must one not conclude from it? In general, Rabbi Akiva holds like the rabbis, it's only with regard to unspecified oaths that he deems one liable for eating any amount. The Gemara affirms, conclude from it that Rabbi Akiva holds like the rabbis. The mission teaches the rabbi said to Rabbi Akiva, where do you find that one who eats any amount is liable, leading you to say that this person is liable? The Gemara asks, and do we not? But isn't it one who eats an ant liable, despite the fact that it is smaller than an olive bulk? Bahare Nemala. But isn't one who eats an ant? This does not mean an ant specifically, but any creature that is prohibited to eat. One is liable for eating a whole creature, even a creature less than an olive bulk in size. And my answer is a whole entity is different since it has significance. Uriah Shene. Although the established measure for prohibition of eating is an olive bulk, that is with regard to eating a part of a larger entity. If one consumes a whole creature that is forbidden for eating, one is liable to be lashed by Torah law, even if the creature is smaller than a mustard seed. And that's from the Rambam Sefer Kedusha, Hilchot Mahalot, Asurat 2:21. The Gemara asks, but isn't one who eats less than an olive bulk of consecrated food liable? Hekdesh, consecrated food. Any item that a person dedicates to the temple or designates as a sacrifice is consecrated as soon as the pledge is uttered. From that moment, it is no longer considered private property of the donor. The Gemara says, in order to be liable for eating consecrated food, we require a different measure, an amount worth 1 pruta. So let's explain that. Be'enan shaver peruta. Consequently, the minimum measure for liability for one who eats consecrated food is an amount of that food worth 1 pruta, even if it turns out to be less than an olive bulk. Rabbi Hananel explains that the reason for this is that the prohibition is not against eating consecrated food, but rather against deriving benefit from consecrated items. Therefore, a different measure is used, that of meaningful benefit, which is determined by 1 pruta. It's prohibited for a non-priest to derive benefit from consecrated items, whether they are consecrated for the altar or temple maintenance. Anyone who derives benefit worth at least 1 pruta violates prohibition of misuse of consecrated property, even if the benefit involves eating less than an olive bulk. If one consumes an olive bulk that was worth less than 1 pruta, he's not liable. And that's in the Rambam Sefer Hilchot Me'ilah 1153 and C13 in the Mishnah Lamelech there. A pruta is a copper coin, which is the smallest unit of currency in rabbinic times. For halachic purposes, a pruta is defined as the value of half of a barley corn's weight of pure silver. Additionally, it is 24 mg of silver. I think that's a milligram. The halachic value of all coins is linked to the price of silver. One is not liable for eating an amount worth less than that. The Gemara asks, but isn't one who specifies in the oath that he is prohibited from eating any amount liable for doing so? The Gemara answers, one who specifies that eating any amount is prohibited is indeed comparable to one who eats a whole entity, since he has granted its significance. The Gemara asks, but isn't there an unresolved question with regard to one who took an oath not to eat and then ate dirt? If, as the rabbis claim, one is not liable for eating less than a full measure, you could rather answer that which Rabbi asked with regard to one who says, on my oath I will not eat, and then ate dirt, and who then ate dirt. But the question is, how much must he eat not to be liable? So that already moved on to the next onward. Thank you for listening, and wish you all the best.